Now an idea of how to interpret a natal chart from a medical point of view. Let's call the person whose chart this is Antonella. Antonella has her sun sign in Cancer and her moon in Scorpio. Even though her rising sign is in Sagittarius, there's a certain lack of fire in her chart, and of air too. Antonella is a water earth with a lack of fire and air. This means someone very emotional, water, with difficulty in taking initiative, lack of fire, and imagining ways out in difficult situations, lack of air, although capable of being practical, earth. The northern node is in Virgo, ninth house, while the southern node is in Pisces, third house. With the northern node in Virgo, it's difficult to be able to count on others, exactly because the people one hoped to count on turn out to be a disappointment, and in many cases they're just the kind of person who rely on someone who has a northern node in Virgo. The lesson to learn is to tidy up one's emotions and become more and more organized practically, making the journey on one's own steam. Since the north node is in the ninth house and the south in the third, let's say that the fact of Antonella's learning to manage by herself in life is functional to her soul's growth and the broadening of her horizons. The parental figures have been lacking, in that already in childhood Antonella really didn't have anybody to count on. Antonella has a problem of emotional nurturing, and many people who haven't felt loved enough in childhood tend to have problems with their digestive apparatus and food. In certain periods of her life, Antonella has been anorexic. Since Cancer, where Antonella's sun is, represents the stomach, and the asteroid Ceres, which represents both physical and psychic nourishment, and which is at 28 degrees and 14 seconds semi-sextile to the cusp of the sixth house, the house of health, it's clear that Antonella's main problem is nutrition and the stomach. There are other aspects in Antonella's chart which back up this hypothesis, like, for example, the opposition between the Moon and Mars, which represents possible digestive problems, and retrograde Saturn in opposition to the stellium, black moons, Sun and Venus. Saturn, in fact, represents, amongst other things, the spleen in the Chinese medicine interpretation, the seat linked to the stomach, in which anxiety and worries manifest themselves. Antonella's lack of emotional nurture has become anxiety. And after all, not even as an adult she feels nurtured and supported by others. But she always has the impression of having to fend for herself, and this kind of thing as a burden. Mercury quincunx Jupiter is sign of nervous problems, but also of problems with sugar, and this reinforced by the square of Mercury to Neptune and by the trine of Venus with Neptune, not least by the 6th house in Taurus, and by the axis of the nodes Pisces and Virgo, indicates that the whole metabolism is potentially unbalanced. The refusal of food and the difficulty of assimilating it are a physical manifestation of Antonella's deep malaise regarding how much to give and take from the world. The fact that the part of fortune is sextile to the cusp of the 6th house of health means that there is protection over Antonella's health, and that eventual difficult moments from a physical point of view will be overcome. With Saturn in trine with the house of health, the Sun, Venus in sextile to the same house, and Mars in conjunction, the most suitable treatments are ancient medicines represented by Saturn, like Chinese or Ayurvedic medicine, herbal medicine, and chromotherapy. Pranotherapy isn't particularly suited in that Uranus is square to the cusp of the house of health and to Mars. And for this reason, should Antonella need to have surgery, she should be careful. Homeopathy could also be favorable, since Pluto forms a wide trine with the cusp of the health house. A personalized diet would be most useful. On the other hand, a real lasting physical equilibrium could derive from the healing of her soul, and therefore the overcoming of her main inner conflict, which consists in a vain search for support in her life, and in the acceptance of the fact that this support is denied to her, exactly because if she had it, her soul wouldn't have the possibility of advancing.